The topic for today is transitioning from indoor volleyball to beach. At the top of your list of things to do should be getting in very good physical shape. Playing in sand is very demanding, and you should focus on core muscles and cardiovascular fitness. Jogging, and especially sprinting in the sand, can do a lot of good since beach volleyball requires short and intense movements. You want to get lots of playing time on sand to allow your sand legs to feel more natural and effortless. Because the sand surface is unstable, developing a solid base of core muscles is very important. You could do dedicated weight training as part of your preparation. Cardio fitness is very critical because there are only two people playing on covering the whole court. It requires a lot of movement, a lot of running down balls, and quick reactions, and you have to be in very good shape to be able to do that over a long period of time, especially if you're playing in tournaments. A very close second on your to-do list will have to do with your mental shape. With only two players on the court, each role and responsibilities increase. Can you handle playing with only one teammate? Can you handle getting served every time? If you struggle with this part, you can't positively communicate with your partner, it makes for a super long tournament, very long day, and it has a big impact on how well you're going to do as a team. Communication part, if you are a pretty quiet player indoors when you have five teammates, one of the things you want to work on is being able to communicate all the time. And again, it's constant communication with your only partner. A good question to ask yourself, are you a mental giant or a mental midget? Again, can you handle this mental part of playing doubles? Playing in beach forces you to be a better all-around player. Indoors, some players specialize on hitting, some blocking, some passing or digging, but in beach you have to be able to do all the skills fairly well. So if you're not used to serving indoors, let's say you're a middle and you're not usually serving, it's important that you have to hit your target in beach, because if you are serving to the wrong player, maybe someone who can pass and hit well, your chances of winning that point is affected. You have to be able to hit your spots, and of course you are serving sometimes into the wind and half the time with the wind behind you, so you have to be able to master this skill. Setting in beach is much more difficult than indoors, at least when it comes to the rules. Referees will call beach doubles or violations much more than indoors. Virtually no spin is allowed when you overhand set balls, and so again, it's important that you have to get your feet under the ball and set. Or you can do what most athletes do, and they bump set every ball. Anna Collier is probably the winningest coach in beach, and she retired from USC a couple of years ago. And she was in Iowa for the beach HP tryout, and during a water break, I love talking to these coaches, and I asked her the biggest tip she can give an athlete when they're trying to find a partner. And I thought she'd tell me something about finding someone who can pass, finding someone who can hit. But surprisingly, she said you should try to find a partner who is a good setter. Because if your partner can't set you, then you're probably not going to be a very good hitter. So food for thought. Hitting indoors, you do a lot of broad jumping. And in sand, you tend to jump upward rather than forward. So it's a different kind of approach, and sometimes it requires a slower approach. Indoors, you want to be fast to your ball. Outdoors, It's a little bit different because you have to, again, you have to make sure the wind isn't blowing the set behind you or too close to the net before you start your approach. And it's much easier to jump up in sand rather than broad jumping. This requires a lot of power through, through your lower body, your legs, knees, and so jumping in sand is a little bit different from indoors. Blocking is a little bit tougher in sand because the approach of your opponent is likely going to be slower. Therefore, your timing when blocking changes a little bit. For the younger ages, it's more important for them to realize when to pull off the net rather than block. Unless your opponent can hit the ball straight down, I would recommend staying at the net, determining if the set is getting blown tight to the net, say by a strong wind. And if the set is off the net, much more important to drop back and play defense to help your teammate out. Otherwise, if you're blocking a hitter that's off the net, you are forcing your teammate to cover the whole court by herself when there's really no need to do that. If you are truly serious about playing beach, I would consider entering beach volleyball tournaments in California or Gulf Shores, Alabama. Beach college recruiters attend those tournaments. So if you want to go to college to play beach, you need to be seen at those tournaments. Also, your opponents are going to be much more cutthroat compared to playing in tournaments in Iowa. There's no coaching allowed in beach unless you're switching courts or switching sides. And so a lot of those guys are just mentally strong athletes, and they do not, they'll call any kind of violation pretty quickly. And unless you are mentally strong to argue your point, if you feel like there's no violation done, or if you think they violated a rule, again, you have to be able to speak up because your coaches can't do that for you. Additional factors to consider is being well versed, being outdoors. So again, playing into the wind, you can hit certain balls pretty hard with a lot of topspin, and that ball's likely going to be in. Likewise, if the wind is behind you, then you have to be more careful in placing your ball. Being able to hit shots in beach is more important than in indoors. Because there are only two of you playing defense, you have to be able to hit line, hit a cut shot, hit some kind of soft attack. If your opponents are playing deeper, and if one of them is blocking, you have to be able to hit somewhere where the opponent playing defense is not covering the court. Again, this is where communication is super critical for you and your team, because if there is no blocker up, you have to be able to hear your partner calling the open spots. Indoors, most hitters try to hit the ball 100 miles an hour, and that's less effective outdoors. Again, because of conditions, and also you have a smaller court to contend with. The court is about a foot shorter on the sidelines and the end lines, and it was done for to allow more rallies. At the same time, it makes getting kills on hard-driven balls a little bit tougher. Good luck on your move to outdoors, and let me know if you have any questions.